Have you ever woken up from a dream so vivid, so haunting, that it felt more real than your waking life? Have you ever wondered why certain dreams visit you night after night, like uninvited guests carrying messages you can't decode? You toss and turn, trying to make sense of these nocturnal narratives that seem to hold secrets your conscious mind can't grasp. What if I told you that Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, discovered something about dreams that the academic world has been reluctant to fully embrace? Something so radical, so challenging to our understanding of consciousness, that it remains buried in the footnotes of psychological discourse? Jung didn't just study dreams. He uncovered their darkest secret, a theory so profound and disturbing that it threatens everything we think we know about the boundary between the conscious and unconscious mind. A theory that suggests you are not the master of your own destiny in the way you believe. The dream is the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul, which opens into that primeval cosmic night that was the soul long before there was any ego consciousness. Carl Jung. Onward thinkers, my name is Mr. Halvig, and you're watching The Rational Wise. What if your dreams were rewriting your reality while you sleep? What Jung discovered wasn't just that dreams are meaningful. That much psychology accepts today. No, what he found was far more unsettling, far more revolutionary. He realized that dreams don't just reflect our inner world. They actively shape and manipulate our external reality in ways we never imagined possible. This isn't metaphorical poetry. This is literal psychological mechanics, and it's a truth that challenges the very foundation of how we understand free will, consciousness, and individual autonomy. Picture this scenario. You're living your life, making what you believe are conscious decisions, forming relationships, pursuing goals, navigating challenges. You believe you're in control, that your rational mind is the captain of your ship, steering you through the waters of existence. But Jung discovered something that would make you question everything you think you know about who's really in charge of your life. He found that our dreams are not passive reflections of our psychological state. They are active, intelligent participants in creating our lived experience. They work behind the scenes of consciousness, orchestrating events, influencing choices, and steering us toward outcomes we never consciously planned. The prohibited theory begins with what Jung initially called the compensatory function of dreams. Traditional psychology stops there, safely explaining that dreams balance our conscious attitudes. But Jung went deeper, much deeper. He observed that dreams don't just compensate for what we lack in consciousness, they actually work to correct and redirect the trajectory of our entire life path. They are, in essence, the psyche's secret method of course-correcting reality itself. Here's where Jung's observations became genuinely disturbing to the scientific establishment. He noticed that his patients' dreams would often contain elements that seemed to predict not just future psychological states, but actual future events, relationships, and circumstances. Not in some mystical, fortune-telling sense, but through a process he could barely bring himself to name publicly. Dreams were influencing the unconscious choices and behaviors that would inevitably create those very futures. Think about the last major decision you made, the job you took, the relationship you entered or ended, the city you moved to, the path you chose at a crucial crossroads. How many seemingly random factors led to that pivotal moment? The chance encounter at a coffee shop, the unexpected phone call, the sudden intuition that made you turn left instead of right, the book that fell off the shelf at exactly the right moment. Jung realized that our dreams had been preparing the unconscious ground for these coincidences all along. They had been planting seeds, creating conditions, orchestrating the psychological landscape that would make certain choices feel natural, inevitable, even necessary. Your dreams have been orchestrating your life while your consciousness sleeps. But here's the part that makes modern academics profoundly uncomfortable. the aspect of Jung's theory that remains largely unspoken in university courses in psychology textbooks. Jung discovered that dreams communicate across individual consciousness. He found disturbing evidence that the dreams of his patients would sometimes contain identical elements, symbols, and even narrative structures that appeared in other patients' dreams. Patients who had never met, never spoken, never shared their experiences with anyone but him. This observation led Jung to his most controversial and suppressed conclusion, that there exists what he privately called the dream network, a layer of collective unconscious communication that operates through our sleep states, connecting minds in ways that transcend physical boundaries. Our dreams aren't just personal psychological phenomena, they're part of a larger, ongoing conversation happening in the deepest layers of human consciousness. Imagine this reality. Every night, as you surrender to sleep, your mind doesn't just process your individual experiences, memories, and conflicts. It connects to something infinitely larger, something that Jung could only describe as the collective dreaming of humanity itself. Your dreams influence others, and others' dreams influence you, in ways so subtle and sophisticated that waking consciousness never detects the exchange. This is why Jung became increasingly secretive and guarded about his dream work in his later years. He realized he had stumbled upon something that could fundamentally alter how we understand human connection, influence, destiny, and even the nature of free will itself. If our dreams are interconnected, if they shape not just our inner psychological world, but our actual external choices and circumstances, then what does that mean for individual autonomy? What does it mean for personal responsibility? The academic establishment wasn't ready for these implications. Even today, decades after Jung's death, most psychology textbooks present his dream theory in carefully sanitized terms, focusing safely on symbols, archetypes, and personal unconscious material. They meticulously avoid discussing his more radical observations about predictive dreams, synchronistic events, collective dream communication, and the possibility that consciousness operates according to principles that science cannot yet explain or accept. But Jung documented everything with the precision of a scientist and the passion of an explorer. In his private journals, in confidential letters to trusted colleagues, in research notes he never intended for public consumption, he mapped out a comprehensive theory of dreams that suggests human consciousness is far more permeable, far more interconnected, and far more mysterious than we're comfortable admitting. Here's what he discovered through decades of meticulous observation and clinical work. Our dreams operate in what he termed clusters of influence. When you have a particularly vivid, emotionally charged dream, especially one that feels significant or prophetic, it doesn't just affect your individual psychological state. It sends ripples through the collective unconscious that can influence the dreams, thoughts, and unconscious processes of others in your life, your community, and sometimes even strangers you'll encounter in the future. This revolutionary understanding explains phenomena that mainstream psychology struggles to address. Why certain themes, symbols, and anxieties seem to emerge simultaneously in different people's dreams during times of collective stress, social change, or cultural transformation. Why lovers separated by distance often report having remarkably similar dreams on the same night. Why creative breakthroughs, scientific discoveries, and artistic innovations sometimes happen to multiple people independently at precisely the same historical moment. Jung realized that dreams are not just individual psychological phenomena, they're expressions of a larger intelligence, a collective wisdom that operates through human consciousness but transcends any single mind. An intelligence that doesn't respect the artificial boundaries we've constructed between self and other, between inner psychological reality and outer physical circumstances. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button. It helps more than you think. Now let's continue. You are not just having dreams. You are participating in the collective unconscious of humanity. The most unsettling and controversial aspect of Jung's prohibited theory is what he called dream determinism. Through careful observation of hundreds of patients over decades, he noticed a disturbing pattern. People who habitually ignored their dreams, who dismissed them as meaningless neurological noise, often found themselves trapped in repetitive, unfulfilling life patterns. They seemed to make the same mistakes repeatedly, attract similar problematic relationships, and struggle with a persistent sense of being lost or directionless. But those who engaged deeply and seriously with their dream life seemed to access something extraordinary, a kind of internal navigation system for life itself. They made better decisions, encountered more synchronistic opportunities, and seemed to flow more naturally toward fulfilling circumstances and relationships. It's as if our dreams are constantly offering us sophisticated information about optimal paths forward, not just psychologically and emotionally, but practically and strategically. The career move that feels intuitively right despite logical concerns, the relationship that unfolds naturally despite initial complications, the opportunity that appears at exactly the right moment. Despite seeming impossible, the sudden insight that solves a problem you've been struggling with for months. Jung came to believe that these weren't mere coincidences or lucky breaks. They were the direct result of dream consciousness guiding our unconscious choices, decisions, and behaviors in ways that create favorable outcomes. Dreams, he realized, are essentially intelligence downloads from the collective unconscious, providing us with access to wisdom, knowledge, and guidance that our individual rational minds could never generate alone. But here's the psychological catch that makes Jung's theory so threatening to our cultural narrative of individual agency and rational control. This guidance system only functions optimally when we're willing to surrender some degree of ego supremacy. When we're humble enough to admit that our conscious, rational mind isn't the sole author of our life story, and when we're open to receiving guidance from sources of intelligence that transcend our individual understanding. Jung spent the final decades of his career documenting what he called the great dream betrayal, the way modern consciousness has systematically severed itself from this deeper navigational system. We've become, in his precise words, dream deaf. We've lost the ability to hear the intelligence that speaks to us through our sleep, offering guidance, wisdom, and direction. This psychological deafness comes at an enormous cost. Jung observed that people who are disconnected from their dream life tend to experience significantly more anxiety, depression, confusion, and existential meaninglessness. Not because dreams provide emotional comfort or psychological reassurance, but because they provide actual direction, purpose, and navigation through the complex challenges of human existence. The remedy Jung developed wasn't simple dream interpretation or symbolic analysis. It was active dream dialogue. He created techniques for consciously engaging with dream figures, for asking direct questions within the dream state, for treating dreams as ongoing conversations with aspects of intelligence that transcend individual consciousness, but are accessible through individual experience. Jung taught his patients to approach their dreams as they would approach a wise teacher, a trusted advisor, or a sophisticated guidance system. He showed them how to enter into genuine relationship with their dream life, to ask for specific guidance about real-world challenges, and to receive practical wisdom that could be applied immediately to their waking circumstances. But perhaps the most radical and far-reaching aspect of Jung's prohibited theory is his suggestion that our entire species is in the process of evolving toward greater dream consciousness. He believed that the next stage of human development involves learning to maintain some degree of awareness across the sleep-wake cycle, to access dream intelligence while awake, and to live in conscious, ongoing relationship with the collective unconscious. He studied individuals throughout history, artists, mystics, innovators, visionaries, and spiritual teachers who seem to have naturally accessed this expanded consciousness. They live their waking lives informed by dream wisdom, their choices guided by this deeper intelligence, their creativity fueled by their connection to the collective unconscious. And this is what gave their work its transformative power, its ability to touch something universal and profound in human experience. The future of human consciousness depends on reclaiming our dream inheritance. Jung's prohibited theory proposes that every human has natural access to an expanded consciousness, a connection to collective wisdom and guidance. But to access it, we must sacrifice ego supremacy, accept that intelligence is greater than our individual minds, and that wisdom flows through us, not just from us. This is exactly why the theory remains suppressed in mainstream psychology. It challenges deep cultural assumptions about the nature of mind, the self, the source of wisdom, and our place in the greater pattern of existence. According to Jung, we are not isolated rational agents. We are deeply interconnected, tapped into a shared intelligence through our dreams and unconscious processes. This network may span all of human consciousness, possibly beyond. If true, the implications are staggering. Each night as we sleep, we enter a vast field of shared intelligence. Our dreams are not merely personal, they contribute to the evolution of human consciousness itself. The dreams you ignore, the guidance you dismiss, the wisdom you overlook, these choices ripple through the collective. You're both receiving from and contributing to the unconscious life of humanity. Jung knew his theory was too radical for full acceptance in his time. He foresaw it would remain hidden until we were ready, psychologically and spiritually, to expand our understanding of consciousness and reality. But that time may be arriving. The growing cultural fascination with dreams, consciousness, quantum physics, and interconnectedness may signal a turning point, a return to what Jung called our dream inheritance. Our innate ability to engage consciously with the intelligence speaking through dreams and the unconscious. The question Jung leaves us with is both simple and profound. Are you ready to listen to what your dreams are genuinely trying to communicate? Not just about your personal psychology and individual challenges, but about your role in the larger pattern and evolution of human consciousness? Are you prepared to discover that you are not just an isolated individual having private dreams, but an active participant in the collective dreaming of humanity? Jung's prohibited theory suggests that the future of human consciousness, wisdom, and evolution depends entirely on our willingness to bridge the artificial gap between waking and sleeping awareness, to recognize that the intelligence guiding our species operates through dreams, through the collective unconscious, through the mysterious connections that link mind to mind in ways that rational thought cannot explain or control. The dream betrayal Jung identified, our cultural dismissal and ignorance of dream wisdom, may be the greatest tragedy and missed opportunity of modern consciousness. But it's a betrayal we can choose to end, starting tonight, starting with your own relationship to your dreams and unconscious processes. Tonight, when you close your eyes and enter the mysterious realm of dreams, remember Jung's revolutionary insight. You're not just sleeping, processing, or resting. You're participating in the collective intelligence of our species. You're receiving guidance and wisdom, contributing to the larger pattern, and helping to weave the future of human consciousness itself. This is Jung's prohibited theory. This is the secret that academic psychology has been reluctant to fully embrace, discuss, or investigate. That dreams are not just personal psychological phenomena, but gateways to collective intelligence, sophisticated tools for navigating reality, and the key to humanity's next evolutionary step toward expanded consciousness. The choice, as always, is entirely yours. Will you remain dream deaf, navigating life with only half your faculties, disconnected from the guidance that is your birthright? Or will you reclaim your dream inheritance and step boldly into the expanded consciousness that Jung knew was not just possible, but inevitable for our species? Jung's theory suggests that the dreams you ignore are keys to a collective intelligence. But what if that's only part of the truth? What if the most powerful force shaping your destiny is what you refuse to face while you're awake? In our next video, we'll dive into Carl Jung's most terrifying insight, the shadow. will reveal 7 undeniable signs that your inner darkness is sabotaging your life and why you haven't truly faced it yet. Let me know what you think in the comments. I read every single one. And of course, subscribe for more high-value content. Onward, thinkers.